Since we released our new guitar loop packs last week, Spark and Flint, we've had a few questions actually asking, how did we track the loops? How do we come up with ideas for the loops? How do we set tones for the loops? How do I actually record really good quality guitar DI? How do I record guitar that is edited but still has life to it? And I figured we could kind of answer all of those questions, as well as kind of give you my run and gun guide for recording as good of electric guitar as you possibly can in one video. So this video will kind of explore how we actually laid down every single loop in Spark and in Flint, but it'll also just go over how to actually record electric guitar if you're a producer, if you have the right gear. I'm going to show you how to get good DI, how to kind of come up with tones, how to kind of fit style parameters in your actual writing. So it'll be a really, really cool video. But before we dive in and check all of that out, I did just want to let you know that we are still running our spring sale right now at makepopmusic.com. You can save 25% off of all sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, courses, and even the two new packs, Spark and Flint, which is kind of what we're referencing in this video. It's 25% off of everything until the end of Monday, April 28th. That is all at makepopmusic.com. It is the best way to support our channel. And yeah, I figured to celebrate the new packs, it would be cool to kind of tear back the curtain and show you exactly how they're made. So we're going to dive in and we're going to do all of that. Let's check it out. So obviously when you're working on laying down something like a guitar loop or a guitar for your song in general, you need to have the right gear. You're going to need an electric guitar. You're going to need an instrument cable, and then you're going to need some kind of interface that has an instrument input or a high Z input. You're going to need one of those. If your interface only has line input, then you will need an extra piece of gear called a DI box. But as long as you have a high Z input or an instrument input, you should not need a DI box, unless you want to split the signal to go to pedals or to go to an amp or something, and you still want to capture DI. But for most people, just plugging straight into your interface, as long as it's an instrument input, you will be fine. For me, that looks like just popping it into my RME UFX2. I'm going right into the second front input called Mic 10, and I just have it set to instrument, so it is at high Z input, and now I can just track guitar DI straight into my interface. Easy peasy. That is really all the gear that you need to get started, and then any kind of amp sims or amp modelers or plugins that you want to process it, all of that kind of stuff is to your own taste. But once you have all of that, I will say it helps having a guitar that is really well set up. You want to make sure that it has, new to newish strings, so they're still bright, they still have life, they still have pop. More importantly, you want to make sure that you have strings that are easy for you to play and deliver the tone that you like. Every set of strings feels different on the fingers. They sound different to the ears. So have new strings on your guitar, but more importantly, have strings that actually fit your playing style and your preferred sonic style. And then other than that, have a guitar that is set up. So good intonation, the pickup height is perfect, the neck height feels really, really good. There's no bowing, there's no weird fretboard issues. But as long as you have a guitar that's set up pretty decent and you have decently new strings on it, you can get good quality DI. For the video today, we're going to be using my Fender Strat American Pro 2. It's in surf green. It is a 3 single coil setup. So we've got a bridge, a middle, and a neck. It's a 5-way selector, so you can do bridge pickup, bridge and middle, middle and neck, just neck. Then you've also got your tone pots and your volume pots down here. We're going to mess with those a little bit less. But here's my guitar. It is set up. The strings were changed maybe 2 weeks ago, so they're not as new as I would prefer, but they're going to work for the video today. Now that we have all of that, let's talk about if you have issues where you're tracking guitar and you hear noise. Let me turn on the guitar chain. You can hear a little bit of that, that buzzing. It's really, really prevalent in something like a single coil guitar because they are super, super prone to noise, especially in an environment with a lot of electronics, any kind of feedback. All you really need to do is turn your guitar away and take it far from the electrical source, and it'll get rid of it 90%. It might still be in there a little bit once you pop a tone on it, but I promise you, you will not hear it in a mix. It is going to be fine. So that's how to get rid of any of that noise. Other than that, you could just use a guitar with different pickup styles, like humbuckers. They're much less noisy. But to get that pop sound for me, that's normally a single coil guitar, and normally that does come along with, feedback and interference and just a little bit of noise. Once you kind of, minimize that, let's talk about the actual level that you're recording at. So right now I'm running with 28 dB gain of input. Here's what it sounds like. So I'm just going to lay something down and see where we're coming in. They're strumming. There's some plucking. Looks like we have a perfectly healthy signal. Let's listen back. I'm going to turn my monitoring off. That'll work. If we need to turn it up more, we can turn it up a little bit more inside the amp sim, but that'll work for now. So that's kind of how I set my tone before anything. I will say that every amp sim, every physical amp, every amp modeler kind of has a different input level that they prefer, where they'll start breaking up, distorting, they'll start kind of making that magic for that amp. It's really just going to depend. So we'll play around with input level a little bit later so I can show you, but just make sure when you're recording your DI that you're not clipping and you don't have a ton of noise. And other than that, you can always, turn it up or down before the amp sims later. You can do that whenever you're, getting to your actual tone building. The only other thing that we should talk about before we jump in is pick size. A lot of people don't think about this, but different pick sizes and thicknesses really do affect tone. So you could always, finger pick. Let me show you what that sounds like. But if you want to use a pick, that's kind of a thicker pick. This is, I believe, about 100 millimeters. If we go for something real thin, this one is 0.5, or this one's 1 millimeter, I'm sorry. This one's 0.5 millimeter. Listen to the difference. Versus a thicker. Versus an even thicker. Versus an even thicker kind of jazz pick. Back to the thin. So they all sound a little bit different. So find a pick that A, feels the best to you actually playing it, but B, doesn't sacrifice to tone. It's not going to really make or break a tone, but it can enhance it. So now that we've done all of that, let's actually talk about how to choose a vibe for laying down a guitar loop. So when I'm going in, whether I'm tracking a loop for a pack like Spark or like Flint, or I'm laying guitar on a track for a production, I kind of want to see what my parameters are before I start noodling around. So today, we're going to be doing kind of like a poppy, maybe like a plucky pop sound. And I might have a tiny, tiny bit of distortion, maybe a tiny bit of chorus, maybe some flanger. We'll play around with modulation and stuff, but that's kind of the vibe that I want. I want a little plucky guitar, similar to like the 1975, Laney, Nightly kind of vibes. A little bit more character than something like a Charlie Puth attention pluck, but that kind of tightness. So to start, what I'll typically do before I even lay down an idea is I'll get just a quick little tracking chain. So here we go. We're going into the Corey Wong amp on default. Input looks okay. We could use this amp. This amp sounds pretty good. I will turn it to bright. That feels okay to me right now. Maybe a little bit more compression. We're coming in a little bit loud. I'll turn the volume down a hair. You can really start to hear that noise coming through now. We'll gate it out a little bit. But it'll still be there when you play. So I'll show you how to kind of get rid of a lot of that when we turn around and move away. But I'll do a little bit more presence, and I'll do a little bit less bass and less mid. Now that we've kind of set up a tone, let's kind of go through the pickup options. If we're on the bridge, really kind of thin and scooped. If we go to the bridge in the middle, really kind of scooped and funky. If we go to the middle pickup, it is round, but it still has quite a bit of bite. If we go to the middle and the bridge, it's definitely scooped like the other kind of two pickup position, but this one definitely has more body. And then if we go to the neck pickup, it's definitely the most round, the most kind of like, it's got the most pop to it. It's got a lot of that like 800 to 1.2K scooped out. So maybe we leave it on that for now. So now that we kind of have a quick little tone, I am going to pop a little bit of chorus on here. We're going to pop a little bit of reverb, and I'm going to have it really short. All right, that feels okay for now. I'm not going to perfect this too much because we're going to change it a lot as we go. The next thing I'll do is kind of just start noodling around with ideas, kind of finding a tempo, finding a key, finding a vibe. Maybe we do something like that. We could also go for like a... Maybe something like that. We can kind of just noodle. All right, let's see what tempo. I think the last thing that I used for the packs was 140. Maybe let's take it to like 110. It's a little fast. Let's slow it down to maybe like 102. Maybe something, yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll do something like that, and then maybe I'll layer over the top. So now that I have kind of an idea, what I'll do is I'll just start recording. I'm going to turn around, go far away. You might see me off the screen, but I just want to get rid of as much of that noise as possible. All right, so that should be plenty to start with. So that's kind of what I like to do, is I like to just lay down everything piece by piece, part by part. And now what I'll do is I'll add two little tracks. I'll add guitar L and guitar R. And those will just be my left and right tracks that once I edit and once I get really clean takes, I'll just pan down to those. Because most of the guitars I do and every single loop in the pack is at least double tracked. So I like doing that just to have options. That one's okay. Okay, so here's the thing. That one had a little bit of like an open, I think it's the G string. But this part doesn't. And if I could just double that, that might be okay. Let's hear this. Let me turn the... See, that one has a fret buzz at the very beginning that I don't like. So let's try this. I like that fret noise that's in there. If you don't like that, you could choose a take without it. I kind of like the fret noise, though. It's a little bit endearing to me. Okay, that take also feels okay to me. So let's just copy and paste this kind of basic tone over to the left and the right so we can hear what this is sounding like with two versions. The thing about picking two takes that kind of go together is that you want slight little time discrepancies, because if everything feels way too tight, you'll start to just kind of get this weird phasing where you lose a bit of width. So there's definitely this like plus and minus of having things be ultra tight and then too loose that they just feel messy. There's a definite middle ground that you kind of want. So let's just drag this take down here and let's hear these stacked on top. See, something here is not working. Yeah. See, that doesn't work at the start. It doesn't come in early enough. Let's see if we can find another take. That doesn't work. That might work, actually, that whole thing. Let's drag that down here. Let's see what that sounds like. I like recording so many options that I could take 3, 4, even 5 options if I want. This looks like it starts a little bit off. Boom. There we go. Let's hear this now. All right, see, there we go. That's not quite lining up. Let's try this one, though. That's a little bit off. Okay. Okay, so here's where you can start to get real nitty gritty. Like, do you want this little guy right here to perfectly line up? Because if you do, you could move those onto the grid every time. But for me, I think you'll lose a little bit of magic. So I'm actually going to leave them a little bit unedited. I'm going to highlight these, hit extra crossfade. That feels pretty good. Let's find where we start to kind of change the progression. It's way farther back. Okay. Do we do that one again? All right, let's hear what these two sound like stacked up. Do they work together? Let's see. This one might need a little bit more finessing and editing. But that's okay. I'm going to copy and paste this first little guy that we had here, but I'll drag these over here for now. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. That's where I want it to be, so I'll cut that out of that loop. Let's hear how this works. Let's see. It definitely looks like we're gonna need to finesse it just a hair. This one just looks like it's a little bit behind in general. Let's crossfade these just to see. That'll work. That feels tight enough. Let's see what else we got over here so we can keep making this loop kind of grow. All right. Okay, so that feels pretty good. Let's see where that's going to fit in back here. Okay, there was like a transitional note that I kind of miss. Where was it? Back here. Yeah. That's what I wanted. It just becomes this like cool little game of Jenga to kind of figure out where you need things. Bump, bump, bump. Cool, that works for me. Let's go find another place where we do that same thing. All right, let's drag that one over here. Okay, so for this one, we need that one little note. And that's fallen a little bit off, so let's do that. Let's do that. Boom, tighten that up. Let's see if we can find one more of that note. There we go. That's all we needed, and this is exactly why I take so many takes of everything. It's because now I can just puzzle piece these together to be exactly what I need. And then we can have that there. Oh, hold on, let me turn that off. And then we just need this one, I believe. Yeah. So I'm just going to shorten this to here. And then all I have to do is take this, copy and paste this over here. And then I'm going to delete this. And I'm sure you can kind of already tell what we're doing. We're going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to swap it for that ending that we kind of did. And then boom. And then the last thing, there was just this one little riff that I wanted to kind of tie in at the end. All right. Let's get these two. Then bada boom. Bring these all the way over here. Bum, 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 bum. And then just line these up to the grid. Crossfade them up. And then I think now we have a full, like 8 bar, 16 bar, however you want to call it, guitar loop. Let's hear it. Finish that up right there. And then there we go. Now that we have that, what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll bounce that all as one file. I'm going to delete all of these because I don't need them anymore. And then now we're going to go ahead and we're going to refine this tone. So to start, I actually might take off this reverb and I might swap it for like a little delay. And let's just redo the time. I'm not going to have it as a dual because we have 2. There we go. Let's dial this mix here back. And then I'm going to dial this bass and this mid back and this treble up a little bit. And I kind of want to try a little bit of saturation. Maybe a little less compression. We're going to filter out everything below like 80. Turn that feedback down. I do not need that many repeats. Filter it out even more. Cool. And then one thing that I like to do is also process my guitar outside of an amp sim. Sometimes I'll do this before the amp sim. Sometimes I'll do it after. If you do it before, it almost acts like a pedal, kind of feeding the amp. If you do it after, it's more like mixing the guitar. But we'll put the attack at like 17 milliseconds. Ease that up. I don't need quite that much compression. Let's try it before the amp sim and just see. That feels pretty good. Let's do some EQ. And then there's like a mid frequency here that I don't like. And then last thing is I kind of just want to add some kind of little flanger in there that's barely happening. And now let's tie that over to the other guitar. Let's hear what these sound like. And if you really wanted them to be even tighter, what you could do is you could highlight these, go into here, do a little bit of swing because there's that swing on the little muted stroke. Go to 16ths. You could hit quantize, and then they'll be super tight now. Maybe I'll leave them like that. The next thing that I'm going to do is render these down into one file, so I'll turn them down a few dB. And then in my render settings, I just want to make sure that everything is set. I can go to render in place, render settings. We're going to render with the channels. We're not going to leave any tail. And I'm going to mix these down to one file, and we're going to call this, the naming structure here was npm spark. I'm going to call this demo. And then we are at 102 BPM. And what key are we in? We're just in C major. Boom, easy peasy. So we go back to the render settings, C major, _ 102, print it out. It'll render this out into one little audio file, and then we will have our finished loop. And that's the process that we do for all 100 of them. Now we have this. Feels pretty good. Let's say we want to post-process it a little bit more. Maybe now that we have this loop, before we want to print out the final, let's say we want to do RC20. You don't have to. That's all just kind of a to taste thing. But let's say we want to do that, and then let's say, you know what? I really like how plucky it is, but it's feeling a little bit abrasive. Maybe we want to ease up some of that. We're going to compress this a hair. Maybe we ease up on this a hair. And then boom, there is our final. And then for these, to get the actual DIs, all that we're going to do is we're going to remove the amp sims. So I'm going to turn off the inserts. We're going to remove the panning. And then for these, I'm just going to go back to render settings, and we are not going to mix these down to one file. We're not going to use a custom name. And then that's just going to print down as two little DIs. And I'm going to take the name here. We're going to remove the R. We're going to call this DI1. I'm going to hit shift so it'll actually name the file that. We're going to call this one DI2. And then, boom, here we go. And then you can keep these, you can get rid of these, whatever. But so now I have my processed file. And then I have my 2DIs. And then I can just print them into a folder and save them if I'm doing a sample pack, or just use them like that in the actual project. So that is my kind of workflow when I'm tracking guitar, especially electric, to get really clean DI, get a tone that I'm liking, kind of control it with things like EQ and compression. And then that's how we actually go through and print every single file, name every single file, everything like that for the actual, like loop packs or sample packs or whatever that we do. So that's my full in-depth, example. If you want to get Spark, there are 111 processed loops like this one, and then there's like 350 DI tracks because we have at least 2 takes of everything, and some of the tracks have like melody lines on top. Some of them have multiple layers. So there's 350 DIs, 111 processed stereo files, and then in Flint, it's a lot more acoustic and stuff, but there's 105 processed stereo files, and then like 370 of the raw mic recordings or the guitar DI, depending on if it was acoustic or electric. And then same thing, some of them have multiple parts, everything is double tracked. That is kind of our workflow when making these packs. It's my same workflow when tracking guitar for any project that I work on. So hopefully this video was of use to you. Hopefully you can incorporate this in your own guitar tracking, or even if you're programming guitar, just kind of the mindset behind it. But I hope that you enjoyed it. It was fun doing this. It took a little bit more time than I expected, but I wanted to give you kind of a full, kind of uncut look at making a loop. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, go shop that sale before the end of April 28th. Everything is 25% off. Courses, bundles, sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, these new packs. Everything's over there at makepopmusic.com. I appreciate all the love and support. I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Peace.